Welcome to MapleWoodian.com podcast. We have on the phone Robinspielberg, who is not only a great concert pianist and many decades of recording and live music, but one of our own, a Maplewood resident of many years ago and school system graduate. How are you doing, Robin?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. We're actually talking to you, obviously, because you are going to be at the South Orange Performing Arts Center Saturday. That's April 11th.
Yep.
And 8 p.m. And some lucky winner has now won the tickets to your show, so they can enjoy that. But we also want people to know about your work. It's the music is just, as I was saying before, intoxicating. We've been listening to it a lot as we're preparing to talk to you and looking at some of the YouTube videos and things. And give us your quick background in terms of being in Maplewood. Now, you grew up here and went to Columbia. What?
I did. Well, I went to school at Clinton School, was my grammar school, and I'm super excited to play this concert because I understand there's going to be a nice, healthy contingency of people in the audience who were in first grade with me.
Oh, my God.
First grade. Yeah.
So it's a first grade reunion in the audience?
There's going to be a first grade reunion in the audience.
Oh, my God. Very fun.
Columbia High School, and I know they call it South Orange Middle School, but it will always be South Orange Junior High to me.
The changes made.
Yeah, the changes, I'm sure lots of changes have been made, but I started taking piano lessons in Maplewood. My teacher, Rosemary Zito, lived right across the street from Clinton School.
Oh my God! What street did you grow up on?
At the time, so that was perfect. I grew up on Garfield Place. Now there's two Garfield places. So this is the one. It's behind Underhill Field.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
But I was the one on one block off Parker Avenue, one block off Irvington Avenue, and one block off Coolidge.
Okay, sure.
Up there, like a mile from the high school.
And how many in your family? Did you have brothers and sisters?
My sister is a graduate of Columbia High School as well, Eileen. And she's excited because her former math teacher, Paul Parsons, is coming to the show.
It's just old home week here for you, right?
It absolutely is.
Now, when did you start to get interested in music? Was that due to a lot of the music at home or at school? What sort of tapped your interest and kept you going?
Well, yeah, to be fair, I think of it a number of factors. One of them being genetic. My grandparents, my grandfather on my father's side and his brother both played for Toscanini.
Yes, we were reading about that.
Yeah, and so
on the air with NBC, correct?
Right, the NBC Symphony, and so music was always around, and I was a very busy kind of hyper kid, as people might remember who knew me back then, and so. My parents kept me good and busy. I took ballet lessons at Garden State Ballet in Irvington, and I took piano lessons, and I took organ lessons, and I took some violin lessons, and I was very involved. I don't know how it is now, but at the time, the school system had a very robust music and theater program.
Excellent.
And really starting in the junior high in South Orange, there was a teacher, Howard Pratt, who introduced students to opera. Not everyone was enthralled with that, but I certainly was. And I don't think we realized how lucky we were. I mean, we would get $10 tickets to see an opera every year as part of a class trip at the Met. I mean, that's pretty incredible. So we did that, and there was a nice theater department. I was in all the plays and musicals and the drama club.
So when did you graduate from Columbia?
In 1980.
So what was it like then, the music program there? And I know they have still. Someone was telling us the other day there are something on the order of 60 students last year who graduated from Columbia with full music scholarships. We're still checking on that.
Wow.
But there's
a
long distance from anyone who's getting athletic scholarships. So how was it in your day in terms of really supporting the musical efforts?
Well, I'm happy to hear that. I didn't have my finger on the pulse of that as much because I was so involved with drama. And I actually went to NYU, and I first pursued becoming an actor, which I did for the first 10 years. But while I was doing that in New York, I was playing piano in piano bars and hotel lobbies in the city.
Oh, my God. You're
to make extra money.
You're regular Billy Joel.
Yeah, I was kind of like a Billy Joel. Exactly. That's what I did. Because,
Excellent.
when you grow up in Maplewood, you're not that far, from New York City, so you have opportunities to see plays and concerts. And our parents took us to a number of Broadway musicals, and I loved that music. So I learned all the classical stuff that you learn when you're studying, but I also had a real love for pop music. And it was great because my skill set allowed for me to make a really decent living in my 20s, playing in New York while I was pursuing an acting career. And then I ended up recording an album of original work in the mid-'90s just because people were pestering me for that. And it did really, really well, and I got a record deal. And they signed me to like a 6-record deal. And I thought, well, I'll stop auditioning for a while and see where this takes me. And I never looked back. And since then, I established a concert career, and now this is my 17th recording coming out. So,
oh my gosh,
it's been really great.
Now, how did you really perfect your? Now you play piano, you play other instruments. What's sort of the, how do you get to that level where you're making your own albums and all? Were you taking lessons all the way through, or did you have great instructors? How did that work?
I think it's a mix of a lot of things, but most of all, it's time. It's real no mystery. I mean, and people come up to me and say, how can I get my kids to practice more? I can be like you. And like, if you're asking me that question, it's already too late. Your parents should basically be saying to you, get off that piano and do your homework. I mean, because it's such a passion, and that's really what you want to spend your time doing.
It has to be ingrained in you?
Well, I've come to the conclusion that people basically like to do what they like to do, right? So when you're good at something, you like to do it. If you're good at playing basketball, you get a thrill. You love doing it. If you're good at, ice skating, you love doing it. I was good at playing the piano. I was just good at it, and I just loved playing, and it made me feel great. It was a great way of expressing my feelings, my emotions, and kind of getting lost in time during all that adolescent angst. I just really enjoyed it, and enjoyed that other people were enjoying listening. And like Malcolm Gladwell says in his book, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was The Tipping Point or Outliers, that it's, once you get your 10,000 hours in, you can't call yourself an expert until you get your 10,000 hours in. So I was playing piano, like I said, in hotel lobbies and piano bars in Manhattan while pursuing something else, while pursuing an acting career. And I was playing 6, 7, 8 hours a day for 12 years.
Wow.
So you can't help but get really good after that kind of time. I don't think I would have done that in my living room, but I was being paid, and paid well, and, rewarded for that in lots of ways. So that's what I started doing, and that's how you get better, is simply by really devoting yourself to the instrument.
How long did it take to get to the point where you could really make a living at it and didn't have to really worry about working in other worlds?
Well, I've been making a living doing music and nothing else since 1986.
Okay.
So 6 years after graduating.
So you did pretty well pretty quickly, but that I'm sure was from sweat and work, right?
I didn't realize it at the time. I was pretty naive about the whole thing. I knew nothing about the music business, and that's funny because now I have a small publishing company and a little label, and my husband's a booking agent and in entertainment, and so we're really immersed in the music business. But at the time, no, I didn't know anything about it, and it was kind of learn as you go. And before DIY was a term, I think we were just kind of living and breathing do-it-yourself mentality. Very early on, I embraced that and just kind of liked the challenge of learning something completely new. So I do enjoy the music business as well as the art part and all aspects of that. So.
And how often do you perform live each year or each season?
Well, now I have the new album, so I want to play as much as I possibly can. I love playing. Really excited about sharing the new music. So I'll be on tour most of April. I've got the show in South Orange, and then this one here in Pennsylvania. I go out to Salt Lake City and Boise and Colorado. I'll be all over the place.
Oh, my gosh.
So I do a good bit of traveling, and I have a teenage daughter, so I try to make sure that I'm not out for too much of a stretch at a time. Last fall, I was out for about 2 weeks in the Midwest. It was in North Dakota and Iowa and Illinois. But I try to stay away from extended periods, unless it's really far away. And if I'm going overseas or to California or something, I need to stay out longer. But I try to do like Thursday through Sunday, get a few shows in during the week when I have something new.
And tell us about the new album. Now, what is it these days? It's not an album. It's a CD. It's online. How do you?
I still call it an album.
So do I. It's from the old days, right?
Or a new recording, because it's a
recording. That's true. It's a record. What is the new compilation of recordings?
Well, the CD is called Another Time, Another Place. I love having a theme behind my recordings. And this theme has to do with my obsession with time. I've been obsessed with time since I was a little kid, whether it's books or movies about time travel or just the concept of time, how it seemingly goes at a steady pace, but we live our whole lives and it never feels that way. There are certain times in our life that feel faster than others or painfully slow. And so all of the pieces are kind of inspired by time in some kind of way. And the official music video was just released 2 days ago. You can find that on YouTube. It's just called Another Time, Another Place.
That will be posted along with this interview so people can see and hear you.
Oh, great. Oh, good. Yeah, so we shot that. It was really fun to do. And we filmed it very close to where I'm living now. I'm living in rural Pennsylvania, so all of those spots are pretty near my home. And this area is pretty historic because it's like Civil War era kind of film.
Oh,
and
lovely.
The landscape around here has not changed since that time. And we actually shot it at this one train station you'll see in the video where currently that's where Abraham Lincoln had changed trains to make his Gettysburg Address.
Excellent. Now, how would you describe this round of songs and pieces? Do you try to have a certain theory or?
Yeah, people have, they love putting in a box and labeling you. So it's tough for me as the composer. I guess if I had to pick a label, I would call it neoclassical because it's new music for a classic instrument. The piano is over 300 years old. I love the structure that comes along with classical music, but I'm a real sucker for a strong melodic line. Because of my love of pop tunes and Broadway. So most of the songs have a very strong melody to them that you can hum. And so I call it neoclassical. Others, a decade ago, I was always, when we had record stores, they would put me in the New Age bin along with George Winston and, Wyndham Hill artists. I would get kind of tossed in there, but I never really knew what that meant. And sometimes I'm on a jazz series, or sometimes I'm on a classical series. I have recorded a little bit of classical work, but I did an Americana album a few years ago, and I've done a few albums for Christmas and Hanukkah, and I did one of lullabies, and I did a few of standards and show tunes. So, I do a mix of things at the piano, but my main love is kind of storytelling using the piano as the device, telling a story through music.
Now, do you do any where you sing, or is it mostly instrumental?
Well, I tell stories.
Right.
So I've written a book, and some of the book is very funny. So I usually choose to share the more funny rather than the poignant parts of the book with audiences. They seem to get a kick out of that. It's basically stories from the road, things that happen on your way to becoming a concert pianist, kind of a glimpse of what happens behind the scenes that people just would never expect.
Oh, can you give us a hint? What would be something, the kind of story that people might not realize? Especially, classical pianist on the road. You're not the Who or the Rolling Stones, but you are on the road, and it's still work and travel.
You're on the road, and it's funny stuff happens that you just you can't make it up. It's so crazy. Well, I played once. I did a month-long tour in Montana.
Ooh.
And I took a Steinway with me, and I was on tour with the Steinway and this technician. And then the last show was in Idaho, and it was a resort. And it turned out that it was a clothing-optional resort, so the audience was naked.
You don't see that very often at the South Orange Performing Arts Center, hopefully.
No, I'm trusting that my audience on Saturday will be wearing clothes. But this audience, nope, they didn't.
How many people? How much of the crowd was not wearing clothes? Was it
They
a big?
were not. No one was wearing clothes.
Really? And did you know this going on stage, or did it suddenly hit you?
Well, beforehand, my husband had told me.
Oh my God, that's fun.
It was a clothing optional resort. I just didn't really click.
That doesn't register as much as nude might. Yeah, I could see that.
Like maybe they go for walks in the daytime. They go skinny dipping.
Sure.
Like you can be like a nude vacation, but I would figure you would get dressed to see a show. But
oh my
no.
gosh.
Some of them wore baseball caps.
Well, that's dressing up for you, right? And now, how does that affect you when you're trying to perform? Do you just sort of focus on the music, or is it a little distracting, just the oddity of it?
Actually, it was not that distracting. It
Yeah.
was just odd. Like, I just felt like I was on Mars. Like, what? Like, did you forget to get dressed this morning? Like, why aren't you wearing clothes? But they thought nothing of it, so, they thought it was a little funny that I chose to wear my clothes.
That's true. Now, when you're traveling around with giant pianos and grand pianos, and is that a hassle, or is it just like any other?
Well, I actually liked that tour a lot
Mm-hmm.
because, sometimes you go. I'm a Steinway artist, and sometimes you show up and you don't know what the piano's going to be, and so it takes time to rehearse and acclimate to the instrument on stage. So I loved touring with the piano because I really knew it very, very well.
Excellent.
By the time the tour was over, I wanted to buy it. I mean, it was just, I was in love with it by the time the tour was over. I became very close, very attached to it.
Now, do classical pianists have groupies and people follow you around, or crazy fans who attack you after?
No one attacks me. You do have groupies, but the big there are a few, we call them super fans, and I'm grateful to the super fans.
Yeah, that's great.
But where the real groupies exist are in South Korea.
Really?
Yeah. I go to South Korea, and I'm treated like a huge star. That's really funny. My music was used there on this really famous TV show, and as a result, it just kind of exploded.
Oh, my God.
And the last time I was over there, they had like a few thousand people coming, like 2,000 or 3,000 people coming to the show, and a huge line for signing stuff, and I had bodyguards and all that. It was crazy. And I don't think that would happen to anyone here who plays the piano. The closest we ever got to that kind of piano star was maybe Liberace.
Yes.
He was this huge, showman, and people went crazy over him. But we don't have, right now we have Long Long, who's a really famous classical pianist.
Mm-hmm.
We really don't have, we have a handful of classical stars, but we really don't have that kind of celebrity that goes along with classical music. So it's not like I'm going to be recognized on the street. But in Korea, I was recognized in the airport.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I was recognized, like places that I went. So you must be, so that was unsettling in a way. It just was unexpected. I thought it was very odd.
Now, how do you go about when you compose something for the piano after doing it for so many years? Is it a struggle to find new things, or do you constantly have ideas floating around?
I have constant ideas floating around. I decide. So I used to just write at the piano, and I think that's pretty normal when people are first starting out. But I would think that most of my compositions now don't even happen at the piano. I'm weeding the garden, or I'm on an airplane, and so I compose a lot in my head.
Oh, now, if you're doing that, how do you get it down? Do you record, talking to something, or write down something, or you rush to a piano or a keyboard? And
no, I remember.
You have good memory for the music that's going through the head?
Yeah.
How do you think classical music today? I mean, I am personally. It's funny. I tell my wife I'm a big blues fan and I'm a big classical fan, and I listen to both of them similar. Where I will close my eyes and just you sort of get lost in that kind of music, like you really don't with anything else. I think. Do you think it's getting the appreciation it deserves? Is it more? Are you getting fewer fans in that world these days, or what's it like?
It's hard to say. I think there's definitely a shift in how people are discovering music and how people are consuming music, and of course, there's a lot of technological changes. I probably am not as well versed in classical music as one might think, but I do think that there's something about wordless music that does not have lyrics. I remember when my father was going through some chemotherapy, and then after he passed away, my mother said, I don't like putting on the radio, like every song. It could be a love song, it could be a song about love or a song about loss. They were equally sad to her. Songs that had lyrics, but I can listen to your music all day and never feel that way. Like I can project my own feelings into them. And I think that's somewhat true about wordless music.
Excellent. I like the term wordless music rather than instrumental.
So people listen to my music. I get notes from people I was studying for the bar. You helped me get for the bar, or life cycle events, or they're getting married, or things like that, and a special celebration, or falling in love with someone. They have a love song of mine, or a lot of ballroom dancers are dancing to my music that's in 3/4. So that's really pleasant to hear.
It's also still a major element in movies. You can't have most good movies really don't do much without a lot of the instrumental music.
Listen, I know, you shut off the sound and it's so different. I mean, we were watching, we downloaded Interstellar the other day.
Oh, excellent.
And so it's all these footage of space, and you turn down the volume. It's like all of the emotion that was in the film is gone.
Yes.
It relies a lot on the score.
Well, I heard a story, the director of Halloween, that very scary piano riff in that movie, that he wrote. Yeah. John Carpenter wrote that, which I didn't know. There was a story he told that when they first showed the movie without music, it didn't get great reaction, but when he added in that little bit of piano that's become synonymous with it, people go.
Well, everyone knows, like,
factor went way up.
So scary in the 70s when Jaws came out.
Yeah, Jaws is another one. John Williams. And you also are involved, I see on the website here, with American Musical Therapy.
Yes, American
And that's a big thing that's growing. Tell us about that for people who don't know.
It is. I'm very passionate about AMTA, which is the American Music Therapy Association. And your listeners can get a lot more info at this website, musictherapy.org.
Excellent. We'll put a link in.
And, it's a good place to link to. And the reason I'm passionate about it is because there's a lot of information there about the link between music and wellness. And for a long time, mommies have been singing to their babies lullabies. We know that singing soothes a baby. Why else would we do it? It's been going on for thousands of years. That we use music and rituals and all kinds of different events. They have meaning. But it hasn't been really until the last few decades that the scientific evidence has been coming in and landing in the hands of the medical professionals that really shows a very strong correlation between music and wellness. And so now we have music therapists that are employed in different healthcare facilities around the country and in other countries, and the services are being reimbursed by insurance companies because their services shorten hospital stays and reduce pain and quicken healing. So, even Gabrielle Giffords, who, attributes a lot of her recovery from...
Right, she's the former congresswoman who was shot in Arizona,
She attributes a lot of her recovery to music therapy.
Excellent.
And so, there's a lot of attention now being brought to the field. And so I advocate for them, and I speak to students around the country, letting them know about careers in music therapy and where to go to school for it. And I speak to doctors in hospitals, letting them know, how to get in touch with a music therapist that might help with pain or memory. There's a lot of research with music and autism. It helps patients communicate, helps people with autism communicate.
And with mental illness, people who've suffered from depression and anxiety. Sure.
Music evokes memory, so people might not remember a lot of things, but they might remember their church hymns or their wedding song or music from yesteryear that just kind of stays with you a long time because music uses, all of your brain, not just a small portion. So, I'm fascinated by the subject, and so I've been an advocate for them now, a spokesperson for them now for a number of years.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate your time. Again, we're talking to Robinspielberg. She will be at SOPAC, South Orange Performing Arts Center, Saturday night. April 11th, you can check her out online. Come out. It's soothing, beautiful music. And I'll have to ask you, how often are you related to Steven Spielberg, and how often do you get asked that?
Oh,
or am I the only stoop one who asks?
No, I get asked it a lot, but you'd be surprised that Spielberg's actually a much more common name than you think.
Ah.
Remember being a little kid, my dad would always look in the hotel room, telephone directories. We'd be like cousins of Spielberg's. But I think we're related, but in a very distant kind of way. I know that his family also emigrated to America around the same time my family did, and we're also a group of musicians in Russia, and so were mine. So there's probably some kind of connection, but I don't really know what it is.
Well, it would be great if he used your music in a movie. Then you'd have a
that would be awesome.
Co-Spielberg production. But
it would be. It was absolutely fantastic.
Well, we're looking forward to having you come back home. Your Maplewood roots are still strong, and everyone should come out and see you and buy the music and keep listening. It's great stuff, and we do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And check her out on Saturday night in South Orange and beyond.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Robin. Be well.
Take care.